What's going on, y'all? We back for part two of the Andrew Tate and Candace Owens interview. I don't even want to hold you guys up. Let's get right into it.
But yeah, I mean, me and my brother, we moved to Sweden. We resist the COVID thing from the absolute beginning. We tried our best because Sweden was completely wide open, absolute insanity. But yeah, even the COVID thing, if you look at it, the emotional argument that was used and how they controlled the world, and they're going to use emotional arguments to control us with everything. I talk about the police force being AI. What they're going to eventually do is say, cops shoot people, humans make mistakes, cops are racist. We're going to give you robot cops that never make mistakes because cops are racist and cops can make mistakes, but these robots never make mistakes ever. And then once all the police force are completely robotic and they've removed all our weapons, you think something like COVID 2.0 isn't coming? You think you're not going to be locked in your house? You think they're just going to let you live in peace and walk around outside? Are you an idiot? And they're going to do all of this with emotional arguments. They're not
That's
going to
why
do
they
it with
want a
logic.
matriarchy.
Absolutely, because with a matriarchy, you can affect it with emotionality. You can sit there and say, the planet is dying. Don't you care about the trees? Give us all your money. And people will sit there and go, oh, yeah, I do feel bad about the planet. Okay, it's just an extra 18% tax. And they can fall for it. So emotional arguments are how you get your way with anything. If you give me somebody, if you put somebody in front of me, I can convince with an emotional argument. I can convince them almost anything. Almost anything. Logic is much harder to do. So we need masculinity even in the household. And I'm just talking about baseline masculinity of just the logic and the rock solid self-assurance to sit there and say, no, I'm in charge of this house. Let's all just calm down. Well, let's not get emotionally led by this news channel. And let's be very smart about what we do and how we react to things. And that's why it's under attack. And I think I talk about revolutions and I talk about men being the military age males who are going to eventually stand up, etc. But I'm not be doomsdays about anything. I don't want to get arrested for any accusations. But even just having a masculine essence in a household makes the whole household harder to psyop. I truly believe that. And I can just think of COVID, and I use it as an example because it's the most recent large psyop they've attempted on us, where the amount of people I saved personally, I must have saved 200 people's lives from that vaccine. Me personally, just because me as a man, they'd come to me and go, I want to travel. And I'd say, listen, I don't even have time to explain to you, but have I ever been wrong? No, don't get it. Okay. A year later, they're like, I'm so glad I didn't get that. I'm like, I told you. Like, it's amazing what a masculine essence can do. So that's another reason it's under attack, because if they can remove the masculine essence from society, well, now you have a society. Imagine a society where you can control purely with emotional arguments. We're almost there.
We are in a matriarchy, and this is why they accuse me of being an internalized misogynist, because I'm able to think through and acknowledge the flaws of what happens in society when women get power. And if you want to know what happens, look around you. Women fall for emotional arguments the entire time. Show us a commercial, show us. It's so sad. And before they get to the rational aspects of it, they're already invested emotionally. And I think that virtually every societal ill that we are facing today is because of women. And I think the greatest recent example of that is the Bud Light controversy, because
Wow, I was not expecting her to say that. Every societal woe we are facing today is because of women. And she says they called her an internalized
women need to
misogynist.
realize how backwards it is that it took men to stand up to say something was wrong when it was so obviously patently wrong. Yeah. Nobody cared for years until men stood up to it. So, yeah.
Completely, because it's emotional arguments. And if we also analyze, I mean, there's certain things that women can do so much better than men. I said this the other day. I was saying to my brother had his daughter here and my niece was here. And I said, isn't it amazing? I found this amazing. I said, isn't it amazing the patience a mother has with a toddler? I'm like, she's been listening to Peppa Pig for 4 hours. I would lose my mind. I couldn't do it. I simply couldn't do it. So women have this emotionality, which is so fantastic when it's properly used, when it's put in the place it's supposed to be. I would never drop my child off to a daycare full of men. Would you drop your 3-year-old child to a daycare run exclusively by males? No. It'd be weird. It's just something about it is weird. I wouldn't trust the men not to lose their temper with the kid. I wouldn't understand why all these men want to be around these children all day. It would be a very weird scenario. So we all understand innately our gender roles, innately on some level. So women have a fantastic superpower when it's properly used. But like everything on earth, if you have a superpower or any kind of power at all and it's put in the wrong direction, it can be destructive. Water, if it's going through a dam, can power a city. If it's not going through a dam, it's a flood. So we have all this emotionality put in the wrong direction, and now they're in positions of...
Beautiful analogy. And he comes up with these things like on the top of his head mid-conversation. That's very crazy. I truly enjoy the aspect of what he does. But he is absolutely right. Feminine energy in itself, or the feminine essence in itself, is a beautiful thing when put to task and put to purpose, as far as like, when it's supposed to be used and how it's supposed to be used. Now in this day and age, they got everyone switching roles and, oh, I want to be as strong as men. Oh, I want to do what women do, mixing up what we're innately supposed to be doing. And it's just very crazy. So he's absolutely right about that. Let's continue.
Power or whatever, or they're controlling the culture, or they're controlling how households are run, and they can fall for these emotional traps, these very simple, basic emotional traps. It's for grandma. The most basic, dumb level. And I sit there and say, grandma's 98. 98-year-olds die. And I'm not saying she should die. I'm saying 98-year-olds get sick. Who said it was COVID? Prove it was COVID. She got the flu last year. Like, what? Have you lost your mind? But grandma.
Which is funny because I think the average life expectancy is 73. So if they've made it to 92,
they've done great.
They've done great.
Absolutely.
And I said that, and people thought that that was so harsh and so mean.
Because there you go. Harsh, mean, emotionality.
Yeah.
And emotionality is used against people, which is also why they don't like stoicism, is why when you have a man who's hard to emotionally affect, they also see him as a threat. Mm-hmm. I've had it from a lot of people. I've had some of the hate mail I've got, and I get a lot of, I probably get about 10,000 emails a day. I'd say about 9,000 of them are support and 1,000 of them are fervent weirdos. And the weirdos are like, you're a psychopath because all this is happening to you. You don't even care. It's like, they're threatened by the fact that I'm stoic. They're threatened by the fact that I won't cry and lose my mind over it. They're like, oh, he has emotional control. He's a threat, because then they can't lie to me. They can't psyop me. And they want you to be emotionally incontinent. And this is another thing they're teaching men. They're teaching men to act out your feelings. Well, why are they doing that? Because that makes you an emotional person and you're easier to control. They don't care that that damages society by extension. Because when you tell men to act out their feelings, that's why you get school shooters. That's why you get rapists. That's why you get murderers. Why does somebody murder someone? Because he's mad.
He's right. All those things would literally fall, like, not directly, but they would all fall into crimes of passion, doing something out of an emotional state or an emotional feeling. He is absolutely right about that. That's where you get these school shooters. That's where you get these rapists. That's where you get all the petty crimes that men commit. It's 9 times out of 10 because they can't control themselves emotionally. They don't have any discipline. They weren't taught these things as boys, or how to control their emotions or channel or funnel their emotions into something positive. I already know what he's about to go into. He's right. He's absolutely right, though.
Mad. He's acting out his feelings. He's not a very stoic person if he goes, I hate you, bang. Right? So they're teaching all this emotional incontinence in men, trying to pretend they care about society. It's destroying society in real time. They have no interest in actually preserving anything that's important about masculinity. And the only reason they're doing it is because that allows them to use emotional arguments. Now they can sit and say, okay, these men act out how they feel. So let's make them angry, and they might riot. And let's make them riot on this street. Let's leave some bricks on this street. You understand what I'm saying? It's all absolutely and utterly done on purpose. And it's kind of amazing to me that nobody sits there and understands the best way you can rebel against the slave mind and resist the matrix is just to be the kind of person who uses logic, is stoic, is emotionally controlled, is physically strong, because a strong body is a strong mind, who refuses to be told or labeled as something. You can't label me as a depressed person. You can't label me as some kind of disease or some kind of personality disorder. You can't label me a color. I'm Andrew Tate. This is who I am. I work hard for my last name. I understand what's right and wrong. I'm going to do my absolute best. And that alone in and of itself is an act of rebellion against these people.
Society really started going down the drain when we started getting into mental health awareness. And this is maybe one of my most controversial viewpoints, but I say it over and over on the show. Everybody needs a therapist. They're talking about their feelings. The truth is that every feeling you have isn't valid, doesn't need to be explored. Sometimes you just have a wacky feeling and you just let it go. And because my grandfather was such an impact on my life, strongest man that I've ever known, didn't shed a tear at my grandmother's funeral. They were together from the time he was 17 years old until her dying day. I'm certain he collapsed when he got home.
Yeah, of course.
But this traditional display of masculinity, in my grandfather's perspective, that a man needs to let it die in his chest, before displaying this emotion, had an impact on me. And when I see, like, I guess to give a cultural example, someone like Prince Harry, on TV, with his arms like this, breathing and showing what he learned in therapy, it makes me want to die a little.
Completely.
It makes me want to die a little when I see men acting like this.
Completely.
And that's controversial because they're supposed to say, oh my God, he's so brave. It's so stunning. Like, he's showing this side of him. Everything about Prince Harry, to me, is what a man should not be. Right?
Absolutely.
What you've done to your family, betraying your family, allowing a woman to assert that much control over you that you would, for profit, betray your family. I mean, everybody's got a family. Everybody's got family issues. Don't even let me get started. But the idea of selling out your family and then going
the royal family, selling out the royal family. And
what happened, it's such a display of what's happened to men, what's happened to masculinity. He's giving up his guns. He's never going to do this anyway. It's all of it is such a public example of what can happen.
The thing is, I know what's so interesting is I know how miserable he is.
He's miserable.
There's no way a man can be happy in that scenario, because I think masculine happiness comes from strength and to a degree excellence, and also comes from respect. Mm-hmm. Men want to be respected, and he doesn't respect himself. His family doesn't respect him, and his woman doesn't respect him. I know how unhappy he is. I know how unhappy she is by extension. It's just an unhappy, miserable house. He gave up everything and gained absolutely and utterly nothing. This whole therapy thing, the reason I believe they push therapy so heavily is because it goes into something I said a little bit earlier about selfishness. If you convince somebody that they have to spend hours and hours per week sitting in a chair talking about that feeling they had last Thursday in the kitchen.
That's crazy.
It's insane.
Crazy.
You want to talk about creating mental illness? There it is. This exasperates problems. This makes it worse. Mm-hmm. And it also builds this culture of absolute and utter selfishness. Excuse me, they're trying to put you in jail for the rest of your life effectively because they're going to enslave you and they're going to control all the money and they're going to make you get injections you don't need. Yeah, but I'm sad. I got therapy. I'll talk about it later. Yeah. That's all they want. They just want you to be so obsessed with how you feel in your own mind that you can't even look outside of yourself and care about anything. Right. It's part of the propaganda machine. It's part of the mechanism to turn us all into docile farm animals. I said this to somebody the other day. They were talking about how they feel. And I said, who cares how you feel? And he goes, well, what do you mean? Well, I don't care. You're telling me I know you and I don't care. So all the people who don't know you don't care. The woman you want doesn't care. You can't go up to a chick at a bar and say, you know what? Usually I'm really charming. Today I'm a bit sad. Can you give me a pass? Can you let me off? She'll be like, go away, weirdo. The chick you want doesn't care.
He's right. And Kevin Samuels said this too. The world does not care about your problems. The world does not owe you an explanation. If you are a full-grown adult, we expect you to have your together. We expect you to have your together if you're a full-grown adult. Point blank, period. If no one in your inner circle cares, don't expect anyone else to care. That's the absolute fact.
The job you're supposed to perform at doesn't care. If the man who wants to mug you decides to pull out a machete, he doesn't care. You can't say, bro, I'm not in the mood for a fight today. Tomorrow, please. Nobody cares. So why do you care? All the people out here in the world don't care, but you're going to sit there and you're going to carry me the only person in the world who cares? You're going to walk around telling everybody, trying to find somebody who gives a shit? Good luck, because what's going to happen is you're going to walk around feeling sorry for yourself, trying to find somebody who cares. You might find somebody who pretends to care long enough for you to get a little bit of dopamine, but all in all, you're wasting time in a hyper-competitive world where people like me who perform regardless of how they feel are just going to perpetually bury you. And then you're going to sit there and wake up and go, why am I a loser? Well, because when Andrew was sad, he continued to perform. When Andrew was in jail, his business didn't fall apart. He was doing push-ups every day. His body didn't fall apart. Nothing about his life degraded when he was in a jail cell surrounded by cockroaches. You're in a plushy bed at home, crying about what? And you expect the male world's hyper-competitive. So you're not allowed almost as a man to put that much importance on how you feel. You don't have time to care about it because you have too much to do. This is what I find so remarkable. If I feel sad, I don't think, how do I stop myself? I need to not feel sad. I just go to work. I got stuff to do. I'm a man. I have things to do every single day. This whole therapy garbage, I can't think of a way faster to ruin your mindset and destroy your ability to resist the perils of life than go into therapy.
And the overdiagnoses of everything. It's like, you have this, you have that. And then people take that as an excuse to not ever have to get better.
Oh, absolutely.
Now I can be permanent because I realize that I've got this. I went to the doctor and the doctor says that I have this. And so that's the reason why I don't respond. I've got ADHD. I think now it's like 1 in 2 people has ADHD.
That is a beautiful point. So like the moment your mind accepts something, you're creating your reality for what your mind has just accepted. If you're at therapy and they tell you, oh, you got bipolar disorder or whatever type of thing, right? And they're labeling you as this, and you're experiencing some things that align with it, and then you fully accept it, You're going to start using that thing as a crutch as to why you cannot perform at the level you're performing. That is extremely dangerous, and it honestly should be. It should be fixed, honestly. Within their medical profession, it should be fixed. I don't know why I said medical, it's therapy. But yeah, that is extremely dangerous.
And that's why I'm not able to focus and do my homework or complete a task or keep going to the gym every single day. I hate it. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I really can't think of a quicker way to destroy your mind than go to therapy. Part of me, if I had time to waste, Candace, which I don't, because I've been on house arrest long enough, and once I'm out of here, I'm going to enjoy myself. But if I had time to waste, I would love to go to start therapy. I would love to, like, imagine me, Andrew Tate. I'm going to go to a therapist, and she's not going to know who I am, and I'm going to sit there, I'm going to do therapy, and I'm going to do a video. I might actually do this. It's actually a great idea. I might do a video after each therapy about what bullshit it was. And just sitting there talking about, okay, when you were 8, yeah, what happened when you were 8? Because in your childhood, not everything's because of my childhood. Not everything works that way. Like, it's so asinine. I've actually had conversations with therapists, I think twice in my life. I did a TV show in England, and I had to speak to a therapist. And then I think it was another TV show, 2 TV shows, I had to speak to these therapists. And I sat there and said, I don't believe in your science, because in math, 1 + 1 is 2, and we understand that. Whereas with what you teach, you can have a guy who doesn't drink alcohol because his dad was an alcoholic, and a guy who is an alcoholic because his dad was an alcoholic. So how can you have the same scenario and 2 completely different outcomes? She goes, oh yeah, but there's general rules we can follow. I said, then let's end the conversation. I'm not a general person. I'm exceptional. So can we just stop wasting everybody's time here? Because all your general rules don't apply to me. I'm smarter than you. What have you achieved? Goodbye. I'm a world champion. See ya. Like, it's garbage. And I really do believe, I think there is this mass drive to instill the idea of absolute selfishness in people. I think they're trying to, when I really analyze the ideal citizen they want, the ideal citizen is, yes, docile, and yes, he's unique, but he's also ultimately selfish, because then you don't care about community. And I think therapy is a fantastic way to make you selfish. Because that's all you talk about is, what do you talk about? Garbage.
Yeah, why you have the right to act this way, even if you're acting terrible.
Why did I do? Well, when I was 9. Oh, get a life.
Yeah, that's really Prince Harry's book, honestly.
Is it?
Yeah, I could only get past the first 2 chapters. I was like, it should have just been called Privileged. You know what I mean?
And this is the thing.
These aren't even struggles.
And here's the thing. I think Margaret Thatcher said the best upbringing you can have is good parents and no money. Because you look at Prince Harry you can't talk about anything better for a perfect upbringing. Royal family, come on. It's not his fault, right? Royal family, fine. But he was supposed to have gone to the army. He went to Afghanistan, and supposedly he fought, but obviously he didn't. He's the prince.
Played Xbox.
Of course, he just sat in the back. But if you don't give a man struggle, look what he becomes. Tell me the kind of man, if I were to say to you, imagine a man who's never struggled in his life. Physically, mentally, everything's gone perfect for him. He's born in the royal family, everything's been perfect for him his whole life. Is that the kind of man anybody respects? Is that the kind of man anyone wants to be? And struggle is subjective, right? So Prince Harry dealing with his current problems of his wife nagging, to him, that's full mental breakdown, right? My problems are obviously much larger, but struggle is subjective. To us, they're almost on the same level. But if you were to compare them side by side, they're absolutely nothing. So as a man, you have to build resilience, and you build resilience through going through something and building a tolerance to it. And this guy's had such a privileged life that he's ended up a miserable, depressed, unhappy person. So this is what's actually very interesting. When men come to me, or young boys come to me and talk about something bad that happened to them, I said, good. Absolutely, not really good. You should be glad that thing happened to you, because that's the reason you're going to be the man who can resist the perils of life in the future. If bad things don't happen to you, you're going to end up like Prince Harry. You don't want to end up like that dude, do you?
No one does.
Yeah, exactly. So your life's going to be so easy. You're going to get to the end result, and your wife's just going to wreck you. So you need to have all these bad things happen to you, so you build the mental resilience. And that's another thing about masculinity and males as a whole.
And I don't necessarily think it has to be quote unquote bad things. But yes, every man should have some type of difficulties, either induced or natural, just to give you like a foundation of overcoming, strength, determination. You know what I mean? Fighting through the thing that is hard to do. So when you actually get to something that is hard to do, it's much easier because you've already been there. You've already done that. So I understand what he's saying. That makes sense. And yeah.
We're trying to take that all away from them in almost every regard. And it's kind of like, there used to be like rites of passage where a boy would become a man. That's all gone. There used to be this masculine, very healthy peer pressure to be big and strong, and that's all gone. There used to be I mean, I don't want to use the wrong words. I don't want to get attacked for it, but men used to not pick on each other, not bully each other, but hey, you can't do push-ups, you're weak. We push each other in that way, shame each other to excellence almost. We still do it to this day in this house. Tristan's bigger than me. He's 10 kilo bigger than me, 6'4". I'm 6'3". I'm smaller. He'll bench 160, 170 kilo. I can only bench like 150 kilo. He'll call me a for 3 hours. Like, that's just how we are. So I have to get up and try again. That's how men are.
Women are too. And that's what I'm really against. Sorry to cut you off, but I'm super against this parenting structure where you don't want anybody's feelings to get hurt. I'm one of 3 sisters. We're a year and a half apart. We tried to kill each other. You know what I mean? All I would do is call my sister. No one has called her ugly or more. You know what I mean? I'm like, you're ugly, you're this, you're fat, da, da, da. That's actually good. Yep. You know, it makes you tougher. And when you see these only children who've never gone through anything, their parents told them they were perfect and wonderful. Yep. And I'm thinking, I wouldn't trade my childhood me and my sisters trying to kill each other, you know, every single day.
Life's difficult.
Over a t-shirt.
Yeah,
you know?
and it doesn't matter how much money you have. Life is always going to be difficult. It doesn't matter how much you try and shelter your children, how rich you are, what family they're born into. Life is going to be difficult. And if there is no struggle in their life, they're going to find struggle, or something that shouldn't be a struggle will become a struggle for them because their life has been so sheltered, and life is hard. So if you can't avoid the difficulty, you may as well get very good at it. You may as well get good at difficulty. And it's amazing when you look at someone like Prince Harry. He's just a man who has not become very good at difficulty, and he's just completely collapsed in the face of a woman who's complaining at him. And yeah, even worse than all that, the dishonor of selling out. We were talking about how I feel a duty to my bloodline and my last name, and I have to do my father proud. He's from the British royal family. And he had no honor. He couldn't even sit and say, look, listen.
He couldn't even shut up for them.
Yeah, literally. He had to sell out in a book. Like, God does not smile favorably on people who make these kind of decisions. And I think that's why he's going to be unhappy for a very long time. And he's going to realize that it was never worth it. And what did he do it for? Money? You're from the royal family, my friend. You really need money that bad? Like, it's truly shameful. And I think deceit and treachery are the most heinous and most disliked personal qualities, or something you can actually witness somebody do. I think everybody hates them. And it's because anybody can fall victim to them. Anybody can fall victim to deceit or treachery because you trust that person. Everybody trusts someone, right? So if that person turns on you, you're always in trouble. So I think he thinks that he has the populace on his side. But I don't think he understands that when you out yourself as a snake, everybody intrinsically dislikes you.
Even if they enjoyed watching the show.
Oh, completely.
They've stepped away and went, okay, because I gave the example on my show. You know, you have the Kardashian family, but the one thing about them is they're thicker than thieves. So America does like a reality show, right? Like a reality show. But the reason why they have gained popularity is because actually they always back each other up. They still remained a family unit. 100%. And when you betray that, when you betray family, I think left and right, you just kind of go, okay, maybe that was a little too much.
It was fun to watch.
It was fun to watch, but we don't really trust you.
I don't want to be your friend. I don't want to be your friend.
I don't want to be your friend.
Yeah, completely. I mean, you're going to sell your own brother out?
What am I to you, right? If you do that to your own brother, what am I to you?
Absolutely crazy. And then he wonders why. And I also think what he probably doesn't understand, and if he's watching this, you never know, he might. Hello, Harry. If he's watching this, I don't think he even understands that even his woman views him that way. Even Meghan views you that way. Even Meghan looks at you and goes, I complained at you over William, and you were supposed to tell me to be quiet, and you didn't. So now I think you're a bitch. So, now what? And you wonder why she's never happy. So now he's in big trouble. I don't know what he's going to do with his life, but he's in big trouble. But it's interesting where I don't see how. It's actually an interesting conversation to have about how psyops can work as a whole, because when I analyze, especially as a man, and I always talk from the masculine frame, not because I'm a misogynist, but because I'm a man. And I understand the masculine frame because I am a man. If you stray from the archetype of masculinity, if you stray from honor, courage, if you're not dutiful, if you don't believe in putting honor in your last name, if you don't want to be physically and mentally strong, if you don't believe in finding problems to solve, you don't believe in having a difficult life, if you stray from this because you've been psyoped to stray from it, all you end up with is misery. And it's amazing that people will see anybody who's strayed from it end up perma-miserable and still fall for the psyop. I find it incredible that people don't think logically long enough to sit and say, okay, whose life do I actually want? I would never adopt the thinking of somebody whose life I didn't want. I don't know why people even do that. I could sit and have a conversation with Prince Harry for 10 hours straight, and he could be as compendious and convincing and concise, and he could be extremely perfectly articulate with his points. And at the end of it, I'd say, yeah, but I don't want to be you. So I don't want to think like you. So get fucked. Yeah. But I wouldn't want to listen to him. So I don't know why people don't even just wake up and go, okay, whose life do I want to live? What kind of person do I want to be? Who do I want to be like? That's the kind of thinking I need to adopt and install in my mind, because we're all being programmed by someone to a degree. And I don't think you can escape programming. You can just choose the programming that you are going to install inside of your mind. I'm not going to sit and say I'm not programmed. My father programmed me, my fight coach programmed me, the friends I have around me program me, my brother programs me, my social circle programs me. We're all programmed to a degree. You have to be very careful of who you're going to allow give you the programming. Because if you put it up to society and culture, the current culture, as a man, you're going to end up like Prince Harry. Do you want to be Prince Harry?
It's a big question.
It's a big question.
And the answer is no.
Beautiful point. That was a amazing point. You're constantly being programmed. You're constantly being subconsciously influenced by everything around you. This is why on this channel we pump out a lot of Kevin content, Andrew content. We're going to start doing debates and stuff soon, but this is why it's important to pick in a very, I want to say, strict fashion who you choose to listen to and whose methods, ideologies, and thinking you try to employ. It's extremely important. So that was a beautiful point. Watch the things you consume. Not everything is good for you. Even entertainment stuff. Just watch the things you consume.
Yeah, the answer is no. It's interesting what you said earlier about putting things back to biology, because a lot of human nature is certainly animalistically biological. And even if we look at Harry and Meghan and how they interact in their home, I obviously don't know, but I can almost guess to the T the arguments they're having. I can imagine him saying, I gave up my family for you. This is what you wanted. I gave you what you wanted. Why aren't you happy? I gave you everything you liked. And he's trying to use a logical or an emotional, well, he's trying to use an emotional argument, but it ain't going to work because she doesn't respect him. But he's trying to use a logical argument with her, trying to understand why she treats him so badly after he completely and utterly complied. But humans are biological, and she, as a woman, wanted him to be a man. She wanted him to have some degree of parameter and barrier. And if you don't put up any parameter or barrier as a man, what a woman's going to do is she's going to push you and push you and push you and push you. She's going to see how far she can push you. That's the reality of it. We can talk about any relationship, whether it's Harry and Meghan or any other relationship. If you're a full-grown man and you don't set parameters or set barriers, the woman's going to push you and push you and push you until she eventually finds one. And we can look at that in a romantic relationship, but also people in general. If you're going to give to a taker, they're going to take and take and take and take until you eventually say no. That's how humans work. So she was waiting for him on a biological level to stand up and be a man and say, listen, you've joined the royal family. You're right. You had to bow to the Queen of England. Correct. Because it's the royal family. Get over it. That's all he had to do. He could have saved himself all this mess. He could have saved himself all the running away and looking like a fool and upcoming divorce and all this garbage if he would have just put his foot down. He never did. And she was trying to inspire in him the warrior. I think a woman sometimes tests a man to say, okay, how much will he put up with? Because they want to see, are you a man or not? What if a man's giving you shit? What will you do? They want to see if you're about it. And she was just testing him, and he failed every time. And that's why he's tried to please her. And now he's in a situation where he's asking her why she's unhappy when he's given her everything she wants. And she's unhappy because you gave her everything she wants because you're a punk.
Women don't want neutered men. They don't.
Absolutely.
Even if they personally neuter them themselves, it's not what they want in the end. So I'll ask the question, what do you think men want in women?
That's a really good question. And I can answer that one easily. I think that the masculine realm that we operate in is based on respect. I think that men are constantly looking for a way to be respected. I think the world is hyper competitive and we're constantly always looking for status amongst our peers. This is why you will see a man give up his basically entire life to do something which will only gain him respect, even in a very small sphere. There are CEOs who go to work every day and don't even see their family and give up their entire life and work 12-hour days just to feel like the man in that office. Feeling important in that one office, in that one skyscraper, is worth him giving up his life because he feels like he matters. And if he gets more respect in that office than he does at home or anywhere else, that's where he's going to want to be. Men function on that. So if I had to build the ideal woman who could get any man on earth, what she would have to do is understand that I need to give my man as much status and as much respect as possible. I, by extension of him, being next to him, need to make him look respected. And a lot of this is the easy things we know. No one's going to respect a man who's with an ultra promiscuous woman. No one's going to respect a man who's with a woman who is back-talking him or horrible to him in public. No one's going to respect a man who's with a woman who clearly isn't interested in him sexually, whatever. That's all the obvious part. But the hidden actual message behind all of it is that men are constantly looking for status and respect. And a woman who makes her man feel respected, not only from her, but from his peers, is the kind of woman a man's never going to want to lose.
Right.
So if I had a woman and I came home with all 5 of my friends and she came in the house and said, came in the room, who's hungry? Anyone want any food? It's not about food. I'm the G now. I'm the big boss. My woman wants to feed all of us. Of the guys there, most of their chicks would never do that. That's respect. That's status for me. That elevates my status. So I think as a woman, if you're watching this and you want to keep a man happy, you need to wake up and say, how can I improve the status of my man to his peers? How can I make him look more important to the world? And as long as you take that basic mental frame, you can extrapolate that out to anything. Your man is not going to feel high status and important if you've had a whole bunch of sexual partners, because you're promiscuous. So obviously that's no. He's not going to feel high status and important if you belittle him in front of his friends or you argue with him in front of his friends. He's not going to feel high status and important if you disagree with him on small, minor issues about, if he votes one way, just vote the same way. Like these small, voting's not a small thing, but these things make the man look in charge. It increases his status, and that's what he's most interested in a woman. So
that was a very nice response. Timestamp this right now, 126.50. Timestamp this. Let me know if you guys agree with him or disagree with him. Based off what he said, I have to agree. I have to agree with that. A man does 100% want to be respected. He wants to feel valued. He wants his woman to enhance everything about him that he's already doing, because that feminine touch on it just makes it a lot more appealing to the outside world. It might seem like nothing to the women, but for the man, it is everything. It is everything. And like he said, 9 times out of 10, most of the things we do, we're doing it because we want the respect of someone or the respect of an organization or our name up, our status higher, etc., etc. So yeah, that was a great breakdown.
That's what men are looking for. That's the secret for the women who are out at home. They're going, men are hard to please. No, men are actually very simple to please. Make him feel important and make him look important. That's it.
So both of us come from families. My parents are divorced. Your parents were divorced. Yep. I think your parents maybe lasted a little longer than my parents. Not totally positive. What was your mother like? I don't think I've learned anything about her.
Yeah. So I had a fantastic mom. She did what a mother was supposed to do. I guess I was raised in a I call it hyper traditional. The modern world will call it misogynistic household. My father was in charge. It was his household. My mother was in charge of feeding us and clothing us and sending us to school, and she did a fantastic job. I think that as a boy, as a man, I always wanted to emulate my father. My father was the superhero. So my father instilled a lot of the mindset that I have, but my mother did a lot of the basic things that kept me alive, if that makes sense. She was a fantastic mom, and she's still alive today, and I love her very much. One of the first things I did when I got rich was retire her completely. So she is one of the people I take care of, and I'll take care of her for the rest of her life. And she did the absolute best she could. And that's the reason we moved to England. They decided to get divorced, and England has a better social care system. We had no money. So we got moved to England. And I grew up in Luton, which is the worst town in England, in an area called Marsh Farm, which is the worst area
of the worst
town. So it's like as bad as you can get, like the worst place you can possibly go. I think my school had a 4% pass rate or something ridiculously low. So I grew up in a really bad area. But my mother, yeah, she was fantastic, and she did the absolute best she could. And she always loved my father to the end. But I think my father, in many ways, there's certainly been a lot of circumstances where he sacrificed his marriage to raise us in a very particular way. Because my mother and father would argue most over the raising of me and Tristan, because my dad was so hard on us. But he said, look, you boys are my legacy. You're more important than arguing with your mother. So I think that's actually why they broke up, because he was so hard on us. But I thank him for it. So yeah, but I don't want to disrespect my mother by saying there isn't much more to say, besides the fact she was a very nice, very loving, very attentive mother. That's what she did. But my dad was always my superhero. And I don't know what else to say. My dad was my superhero.
Well, I see it now. My son's only 2, and he's now toddler, terrorist, wakes up every day, wants to go to war. I don't want to go to war. I just want to love him.
Yeah.
And so he is obsessed with my husband. I mean, forget it. The second my husband walks through the door, it's like I don't even exist, right? Yep. Forget the fact that I held him for 10 months. I don't exist. But unless he's sick,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh, then it's like totally mommy, mommy.
Oh,
mommy.
completely,
I'm like,
yeah.
oh, okay. So when you want to go to war all day and you're feeling great, it's like dad, he literally just wants to fight him. He goes up and he hits him and he wants him to be thrown around. And I don't want to do it. I'm like, you're kind of big. I don't want to toss you around. Go find your father. So there actually is a natural proclivity that goes on there too, where like in the way he acts when a man walks through the door, any man, by the way, my son wants their attention. You can see that he seeks their approval at the age of 2. He'll cry in front of the girls, you know. Well, it's me, it's my assistant. If it's girls he's putting on, then when the guys are there, he instantly stops the crying and stops the tears. So it's so interesting to watch that and examine that in just a 2-year-old. So
well, that's biological, right? This is how we charge at the gunfire. This is how men charge at the gunfire, because we want the respect of our peers. We will literally commit suicide for the respect of our peers. Like, it's something that's deep inside of us, or it used to be, it should be. They're trying to take it away from us. But how do you get men to go over the trench, over the line, and charge at machine guns? Well, you do it because everyone else is doing it. And you don't want to be the only bitch, so you have to do it. And you have to die. Like, that doesn't make sense. Think about it logically. It doesn't make any sense logically, but it's something biological inside of all of us, because we have this innate feeling of duty and all.
You got me fucked up. I ain't dying. No, listen, man, listen. If I was on that Titanic, I'm surviving. If we happen to go to war and they institute the draft, I'm going to jail. Call me a coward if you want to. I don't believe in America. I don't fight for America. Now, let me just stop playing though. Let's get back to the video.
Honor, and that's where the courage comes from. And they're trying to destroy that along with everything else. But you're right. This is how men biologically are designed to be. And I was the same when I was young. I remember looking at my dad just going, you're a superhero and I want to be a superhero. That's just how it was. So, but yeah, my mother's fantastic and I love her very much. And she's very proud of me and she's very proud of how we were raised. And she's so glad we were strong. Like, even when we were in jail, she was very concerned, but she's like, look, I know that if anyone can do it, you can do it. And yeah, so.
Do you want to be married?
Good question.
I heard that's the lover boy tactic. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but.
Yeah. And that's an interesting question because younger me would say no, absolutely not. And the reason younger me would say no is because I'd come up with all the arguments that there's no legal advantage really, and the woman can wreck you and you can lose all of your things, etc. What's the point? I don't want the government involved in my life, all those kind of arguments. But as I get older, maybe I'm getting a bit softer. Maybe I do think sometimes you need to make a decision based purely on love and have the faith of love and faith in your love enough to say, I don't care what the government's going to do about this because I truly believe in us and I think we're going to make it. So would I get married? Perhaps some point, yes, in the future I might get married. Yeah, I'm not against marriage like I used to be. I used to be super against it. And I think that's because I grew up in an environment where everybody was divorced. Everyone. So it's like, well, what's the point in this?
Meet your next pillow. Why do we make our pillow in the shape of a cube? I'll tell you.
Yes. Oh wait, so I give her half my stuff and then what? No, I didn't understand the whole point of it. But now I think if I met the right woman, perhaps, yes.
Yeah, marriage is good.
Yeah?
If it's the
convert me, Candence.
Yeah, if it's the right person, if you marry the right person, and I'm saying this as someone who grew up with divorced parents, well, they got divorced after I was out of the house, but speaks to your earlier point about it either impacts you one way or the other. You either want marriage because your parents were divorced, you don't want marriage. I desperately wanted marriage, and I think the ways in which we both have grown. And the confidence that it gives you. I think there is something about people are like, how do you do what you do every day? Because you cannot impact. My life is so stable. The nucleus of our household is so stable. And to be able to raise kids and have them see that example of the perfect yin and the yang, there's something divine about it. There's something spiritual about it. It's why I won't accept you. I think you are actually a libertarian right now, and I won't accept you as a libertarian. I think you will not be one. In a few years, if I had to make a prediction, I think you will lean towards conservatism, because even in just the crack of you talking about the attack on masculinity, because first you say, oh, well, if everyone wants to do what they want to do, if you guys all agree and you want to be homosexuals, fine. But then we'll start to realize that libertarianism, live and let live, is what welcomes in through the door. I'm, very against every ill that homosexuality has brought. And again, these are consenting people that are doing what they want to do.
This is true.
But look, evil is evil, sin is sin, and we're yesterday talking about homosexual marriage. Today we're talking about transing.
Well, it's such a
children.
slippery slope. This is the thing, right? You're completely right, because the idea of live and let live was a fantastic one if it could actually operate without slippery slopes and it descending into chaos and anarchy, and it can't. So this is the difficult thing about it. You get called a bigot for saying, this is my line, I don't agree with this, and you're going to be called bigoted and you're going to be attacked. But truthfully, it's just understanding that, like you're saying, it's a slippery slope. And it's unfortunate.
So what is the slope that we want then? Okay, then we should aspire towards heterosexual relationships. We should aspire towards marriage. We should, and this is the mold that I am selling all the time. Wouldn't have said this 10 years ago. I was probably more libertarian when I first got into politics. And oh, what's the big deal if people want to do this to themselves? And then I realized, no, there is a reason.
No, and you're completely right. And the reason I gave that example is because I'm currently in a legal jeopardy or a legal situation where people who have nothing to do with my life are trying to say that people were victims when they weren't, when everyone was consenting. And you're right. I agree with you there. I also think with the whole LGBT argument, it's interesting because I will be honest and say I do think there is a difference between G and T. I think they are different things.
Of course.
I think they're massively different things. However, you're right. It's a shame it's such a slippery slope where you can't just say to people, live and let live, because it's going to be hijacked and Trojan horsed. And they're going to Trojan horse it, and they're going to inject something in it that destroys the lives of every single person on the planet. And they're going to try and do it. So you have to draw a hard line. You have to be a bigot. You have to never give an inch, because if you give an inch, they take 10 miles.
That's more than 10 miles. Look at where we're at. I mean,
Damn, I gotta find out what she's saying. Yo, she going off. This is the second time that shit happened.
None of it makes any sense. But these are real evils that we're fighting today. And I think it's because we haven't put those firm lines in the sand and said, no, actually, there is such a thing as right and wrong.
Well, this is the thing I love about, and this is where religion comes in, right? Because I used to be an atheist. And then exactly what you just said about there's something divine about marriage, and exactly like you said, there's such a thing as sin. Everything you're talking about is religious. You're completely correct. You eventually, if you're going to wake up and be the kind of person who has hard parameters and said, this is right, this is wrong, it's very difficult to do that without then turning and understanding that has to come from God. Who else is going to decide what is right and what is wrong? And people say, oh, they're all man-made religions. Well, then why does it go against so many of the wills of man? Some of the sins that man want to go and do, the religions are against. If we made a religion wouldn't be against our own sins, would it?
Right.
So it's interesting that this is almost proof for God in so many ways, when you're going to wake up and realize that there is genuine evil in the world and there's genuine good in the world, and there are two sides and two camps. And I do believe that the good is on the side of truth, and I do believe that comes from God. And there's many different ways to God. I think there is one God and there's different religions, and I don't want to argue the differences between the religions, because I think we have a lot more in common than we have, especially in the fight against evil, than we have as differences. But yeah, it's super interesting. And you're right. Firm lines are absolutely not really required. And if we don't have them, it's why society ends up in the position it's in, with so many subjective lines and your truth, my truth, the truth. And you're completely correct. It's not very often I sit with somebody who I feel like says something and I feel corrected, but you're right. Live and let live is hijacked. Yeah. It's hijacked. And it's unfortunate that me as a person now, especially, and maybe this is more of a personal thing. Maybe this is more of a personality trait, where I'm in the position I'm in. I'm saying what I believe is the truth, and I'm out here trying to help people, and I'm saying about the difficulties I went through in my life so others don't have to go through them, just as you said. But if somebody doesn't want to listen to me, I'm like, okay, you don't want to listen to me. I don't care. You do what you want. But that live and let live mind frame can be hijacked, because when I'm saying to people, okay, don't do what I want, or don't do what I believe to be good, don't do what God believes to be good, do what you want, I don't care. And then they get in a large enough group and they end up attacking morality.
Well, it redefines, normalcy, it redefines morality. And, I recently was sitting down having a conversation with a friend of mine, Brandon, and when I first got into politics, I wasn't so staunchly against homosexual marriage. I didn't speak out on certain things, abortion. And then I saw it firsthand. I just examined just the differences in my relationships with heterosexual couples and homosexual couples. And homosexual couples, I'm talking about two men. You don't realize that God designed a man to be with a woman because it prevents men from giving entirely into the worst components of who men are. Just having sex all the time.
Yeah,
right? You can't do that. If you're with a woman, okay, maybe it's menstruation, maybe it's pregnancy, maybe it's afterbirth, but there are these natural barriers that make it so that your relationship has to be about something else other than just sex. when I'm with my homosexual friends, they talk about sex. I don't think they realize that heterosexual couples don't just sit down for lunch and be like, we banged 20 times last night because we could. They think that that's normal.
True.
So then you talk about how that bleeds into pornography, that bleeds into wanting to talk about sexuality in the classroom, how that might bleed in to suddenly wanting to speak to children about sex, saying, oh, this is all normal. It's actually not normal, but because it's normal in a homosexual relationship, you think that it's actually normal.
Totally right.
And so I have suddenly realized, and this is why I've become so staunchly conservative, how it all bleeds into everything. And there is such a thing as objective rightness, and there is such a thing as objective wrongness.
Completely correct. And I agree with absolutely everything you just said. So my question would be then, what do we do? Do we force everybody to be Christians or force everybody to be religious, or how do we do it?
Well, I think the first thing is having the courage to talk about it. And nobody even talks about these topics anymore because they just go, oh, they've won, so we need to let this go. And more you're seeing culturally, people are afraid of being canceled. I mean, what I just said to you is grounds for a cancellation. How dare you question this? How dare you? I even believe now, after seeing the ways in which society has made children believe that they're all trans. I went to university, I went to high school, I didn't graduate with a single trans person. Now you want me to believe 1 in 4 children suffers from identity issues?
Yeah.
No, that's socialization.
Completely.
You place that on them. So is it such a far stretch to imagine that the same happened in the when homosexuality came to America, and then we popularized it and we put Ellen on TV and we gave Melissa Etheridge a platform, and suddenly pride parades were happening everywhere, whereas you don't see this here. You don't see this here in Romania, where we're sitting, because we haven't. This is the power of culture. This is the power of pop culture. When you make something, you have to go the other way.
Completely.
You need to normalize it. You need to say, actually, this is abnormal.
Absolutely.
And this is what normal is. And
that right there was a perfect and a beautiful example of a psyop. Hey, yo, she's going off. Shout out to Candace Owens. I'm warming up to you. All right, you started off a little rocky. You came a little hot. I'm warming up to you, sis. So, yeah, She mentioned she didn't graduate with a single trans person, but now 1 in 4 people may be trans. That's crazy. Didn't hear that stat before. That is a psyop. That is getting people to believe. And psyops are not limited to adults. It can be children, infants, it can be children, teenagers, whatever. Getting people to believe or think in a certain type of way for whatever the powers that be want you to think that thing. So 1 in 4 people being trans or thinking they might be trans, that is the very definition of a psyop. And they did the same thing with homosexuality. Shout out to Candace Owens. Let's keep going. She's on fire.
And it's not both. So, yeah, I've become very conservative in all of these perspectives.
And you're completely correct. You nailed it. When I said, do we force everyone to be Christian? You nailed it by changing to the exact thing I was going to say. It's about culture. It's a cultural issue. And it's completely and utterly correct. And I think that's actually one of the reasons why. I mean, I don't state this with arrogance. I don't want people to understand. I'm not trying to be arrogant. I'm trying to make people understand the situation I'm in. I was the most Googled man on the planet at one point. So I had a massive impact on the culture, and it was dragging in the complete opposite direction that the culture wants to move in. Mm-hmm. I'm dragging men in the complete opposite direction that the Satanists and the people who want to turn us all into slaves want us to go in. So I think that anybody who sits at home and realizes that my legal troubles appearing basically directly after that is a coincidence, then you're awfully naive. So it's unfortunate also that the way the world works, at a certain level of influence and power, the justice system almost breaks down. We see that even in America and most other countries, it all just becomes a big game and a big show, and it's about power plays and a whole bunch of conversations behind the scenes. It's not about justice anymore. So it's very concerning, because you are right. We are in a culture war. And it's culture which is absolutely not really defining the direction in which we move. And this is one of the reasons why I reverted to Islam, because I feel like the Islamic culture is the strongest. You feel the culture.
I was wondering, because you were Christian, and, you know, I definitely do not know enough about the Islamic faith to sit here and debate you on it. Yeah. I'm never a person that will debate somebody on something that I'm not an expertise on.
Yeah.
But I will say that I'm sad that you're not a Christian anymore, because I can sense, perhaps it's because you felt that Christians weren't doing a good job defending their beliefs.
Yeah, I think that God should be feared. I believe that God should be feared. I fear God. Mm-hmm. It's one of the only things I fear. And I believe that also you see God to a degree, or you see religion, how you see yourself. And I see myself as a person of strong principles and strong morals. And I like to think of myself as the kind of person nobody really wants to cross, not because I'm a psycho, but because I'm a man of capability and I'm smart and I'm strong and nobody wants to make an enemy of me. So I feel like I find an affinity to a belief system which has very similar outlooks. And there's a whole bunch of other things I can say from the Quran and Islamic texts, etc. But to keep it very vague and very broad for people who are not Islamic, I felt God when I was in an Islamic country. If I went to an Islamic country,
That's the problem.
I
The
felt
West-
God.
West is
You don't
Christian.
feel any God.
I think
How
that's
is it a
it.
Christian country if Satanists are mocking Jesus on the streets?
Okay. I understand what you're saying, and I was trying to gather in my head what pulled him away from Christianity, and I said it's probably the example. If you're thinking that America is a Christian country, and you're thinking that the United Kingdom is a Christian country,
They're not.
then you're going, Christianity is getting it wrong.
That's nice for Andrew. That's nice for him. What pulled me away from Christianity, if anyone cares? Yeah, we weren't really practicing Christianity before slavery. Prior to slavery, we were not practicing any form of organized Christianity at all. I believe the whole thing is made up. I believe it's a control tactic. I believe it's a fear tactic. I believe that if our ancestors saw us today practicing that BS, they would spit on us because it comes from nothing we have done. We were natural people. We were very natural people. We believed in a henotheism, pantheism, all that other stuff. Christianity is complete garbage.
Wrong.
Yeah.
And the truth is that America is no longer a Christian country. We're being run by people that are satanic.
Islam is not complete garbage. I won't say Islam is complete garbage because, as Andrew says, see, the respectable thing about Islam is that they do have codes, principles, and things that they uphold by and stay to, right? They enforce certain things, and they're just more organized as a whole. Christianity is just everywhere, honestly. So
Hollywood is satanic, and Hollywood is running America.
The right mattress makes everything clear.
Oh, the book club that wants me to move to the woods is a cult.
The right mattress matters.
Correct.
So you're not wrong. But I think that right now America is facing a spiritual battle. And for the first time in a very long time, Christians are starting to stand up and speak about our principles.
I hope so.
And I could have used you as a
I know. But I have seen in California, I've seen Christians and Muslims get side by side when they were complaining about the LGBT
I did see that
schools, which is fantastic. And I know what you're saying, and that is true. But it's almost like when I go to an Islamic country, I feel God around. You see it. You see it in the way the people are dressed. You see it in the fact that everyone's in a family. You see it in the fact that there's a mosque on every corner. It's in the air. And it's almost like when I'm in Dubai and I'm talking to my friends, my Islamic friends, and I explain to them the things you have to protect your child from in an American school. They literally think I'm lying. They're like, no, surely. Like, it's mind-bending to them.
What about African countries that are Christian?
Okay, so yeah, this is interesting. So
yeah, they still are mind blown by the concept of what we're fighting in America. So America is unique. We shouldn't say that this is the blanket.
You're right. They're right. There are Christian countries which still take Christianity.
And they're like, what do you mean men can be women? Like, they think you're crazy.
And we're in Romania, and Romania is a country which is very conservative and very Christian.
Very Christian.
And they don't buy into any of this garbage either.
None of it.
So this is absolutely not really true. It's unfair to say all Christian countries are like that.
America is an exception and not in a good way.
Yeah, I feel like the whole West is, unfortunately.
The West is. I've said on my show the entire time. The West is falling. The fact that we're even having these debates is not good.
Yeah, the West has fallen, and unfortunately,
Russia, Christian country.
Yeah, absolutely, a very Christian country. So yeah, you are right, but I felt an affinity to Islam. I felt God in the air, and it's difficult for me to explain any other way.
Okay, that's fair enough. I won't push you any further on that. All right, let's get to your case that's happening today. So, and why conservatives are screaming about it in America, and why they feel that Tucker didn't push you enough on this case.
Push me.
Okay, so first and foremost, one thing I want to clarify for people that are watching this is that there seems to be this understanding that you are being prosecuted, or you're being indicted rather, for human sex trafficking charges. I've read the indictment, and I do want to make it clear the words human sex trafficking occur on the indictment, but then it makes it very clear that what they're referring to is they've kind of extended the term. It's not what we think about in America when you think of a bunch of children being put into a truck and taken over the border against their will. They're basically saying that if you trick a woman into coming into a country by using the lover boy method, then they consider that to be human sex trafficking. So the definition has definitely expanded over time.
Well, it's also ridiculously misogynistic to believe that women can't make their own decisions on anything. So the whole thing about it is misogynistic. But yeah, you're correct. That's a very important distinction.
Essentially what they're saying is we have a show in America called 90 Day Fiancé. That is the lover boy method, is women that go over to the U.S., they're clearly coming for citizenship, but these women kind of get duped and they sponsor these people.
Yep.
This would be the same vein of what they're trying to describe. I've read it myself of what human sex trafficking can be, which is
it's an
a
absolute
woman
reach.
fell for you, fell in love, moved over here overseas, but it's only because you were very convincing.
Yeah.
That is the definition given in the indictment of what they're referring to.
Correct. So I'll give a very quick rundown on the case. Everything from these old videos, old clips, my webcam company, things that happened 10 years ago have absolutely nothing to do with the criminal case. Absolutely zero. Anything you see from before 2021 has nothing to do with the case. The case against me is that from 2021, my brother and I, when we were already worth hundreds of millions of dollars and already successful and famous, created an organized criminal group. And our intention was to convince women to move to Romania to make TikTok videos so we could steal the TikTok money.
And TikTok, and they mention OnlyFans.
Correct.
On the indictment page. And they say that you did this using the lover boy method.
Yep.
And it almost reads, what's interesting to me and why I was compelled by this case is just that because they tremendously changed it. When they were investigating you, we were told that there was a woman who went to the UN who escaped your grip and that, you know, she said, I've been held captive.
Yep.
And then after they investigated, they came up with what it sounded like regurgitated Andrew Tate videos.
Yep.
The lover boy method, which is in one of your videos where you're talking about women. So it seems like during that time where they held you in the cell, perhaps the initial case that they fed to the media fell apart.
Yeah, I believe what happened, and I have to be very careful what I say, but what I believe happened is in April of last year, Tristan and I had some visitors here from America who were only in the country for 5 days, made some very strange demands financially. When they were rejected, they called the American embassy and said they had been kidnapped. Those two women, we deem now to be professionals. One of them has accused 7 men of kidnapping in her life. And she's also lawyered up instantly from a left-wing NGO because she's currently being sued by us for false charges. And she seemed to be very well supported and funded. So I don't know if she was sent as an agent. We're not entirely sure. So this is a very interesting beginning to all of this in April. The Romanian authorities arrested us for precisely 2 hours and threw it out and knew it was all garbage from the beginning. The case remained open. Nobody understood why the case remained open. My lawyer made repeated requests to close the case. They wouldn't close the case and it remained open and absolutely and utterly dormant. When I was canceled, when I was deleted across all social media and canceled and lost my bank accounts, my Uber account, my Stripe account, my Gmail, absolutely everything. Literally within the same week, the case was picked back up, which was very strange. I was followed. They tried to find evidence of any kind of crime at all. They couldn't find any crimes whatsoever. They then raided my house for a second time with the intent of getting my electronics, which they got. They went through all of my electronics and they could find nothing of actual criminal intent. What they did find is my brother and I and our personal assistant, because at the time, if anyone who knows the internet or has been around for a while will remember, my face was all over TikTok. You could not get rid of my face on TikTok. Me and my brother were explaining our strategy for how we got so big on TikTok to some friends of ours. They then said that we were forcing them to do the TikToks for our money, for our brand. They made this huge reach and said it's human trafficking because we're forcing women to make TikTok videos.
Yeah, so that's the part that registered to me as strange. It started as we were told it was kidnapping, which is it's very serious, that somebody fled to the U.S. Embassy. This is the woman that you're talking about that you say you're alleging has also accused 7 other men.
Alleging, it's literally now on Twitter. You can see the complaint we filed against her. 7 men she is accused of kidnapping. She's done it with 7 different boyfriends who didn't buy her what she wanted. One of them killed himself.
Okay, wow. So
she's a professional.
Okay, so it's very strange that she comes over, she accuses you of kidnapping her, but then they decide not to prosecute that, but they fed that to the media, that you kidnapped someone, that she fled to the U.S. Embassy. Yep. Then all of a sudden we learn that they're investigating you, and the charges then go from kidnapping to, well, actually what he was doing is a lover boy method, which we're saying is human sex trafficking, and that these women didn't know what they were getting into. They thought that he was going to marry them. And actually what he wanted them to do was just to make TikTok and OnlyFans videos.
Yeah, so the loverboy method, traditionally, the way it would traditionally work, the reason it was criminalized.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I gotta pause that. That is such garbage. Full stop. The loverboy method, the fact that that is an actual crime, Andrew Tate said it, I think maybe 5 minutes ago. It's extremely misogynistic to think that women can be fooled into or coerced into actions that they don't know what's going on, or they think something's happening when it's really not. Don't get me wrong. Yes, people can lie, but it literally undermines another person's intelligence, number one. And the fact that this is an actual crime is the stupidest thing. I don't want to curse. It's the stupidest thing that I've ever even heard of. That was the first time I've heard the case from his mouth from start to finish like that, at least I'll say. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. It's very sad that he's going through this, and he said one of the women had the he said she made him kill himself because the accusations that she was purporting. That's absolutely crazy as well. That's absolutely crazy as well. Let's get back to the video, man. That's like, I got a lot.
To the criminal code is that I would be a Romanian man and I would meet a Romanian girl. We would get married. Marriage is part of it. I'm not married to anybody. We'd get married. We'd move to a richer country. You go from a poor country to a rich country, let's say America. You put the girl into sexual work, let's say prostitution, and then I'll keep all the money and I'll control her or coerce her by pretending to love her. That's what they're saying. That's how it traditionally works. Mm-hmm. They've accused me of using the lover boy method because basically I was a nice person. I was nice. That's the thing that most people don't understand about the law. It's so ridiculously subjective. If they want to weaponize it and use it to attack you, that's exactly what they'll do. They can accuse any man of using the lover boy method if you send nice messages on a text message. If you're like, hey, baby, how are you?
So did you,
hey,
did you promise to marry these women?
No, I didn't promise to marry anybody. What I had was girls. The two girls who were in the criminal file asked me how to be famous on TikTok. I told them how to be famous on TikTok, and I spoke to them nicely the entire time. These two women have come out and made videos repeatedly saying, we're not victims of anything. I don't know if you've seen them.
No. Okay, so just so I back this up.
The victims
in the indictment.
Correct.
Have made videos
Correct.
saying we're not victims.
Correct.
I did not know that.
It's all over Twitter. In fact, on I think it's my pinned tweet, you can see the criminal case against Andrew Tate. The two victims who the DCAR are accusing me of using the Loverboy method on have made videos saying, he just told us how to do social media. We're not victims.
I've never seen any of them being aggressive or rude. They've always respected people.
Ai fost amenințată?
Nu, n-am fost niciodată. Dacă eram amenințată, automat nu mai eram idiotă să stau în casa asta. Suntem prieteni buni de 2 ani de zile, cam așa. Poți să mă treci pe mine ca și victimă, dacă eu n-am spus că sunt o victimă.
They gave this statement to the police. The police ignored it and said they're brainwashed. So they ignore it. So now we have a criminal case where we have girls who are saying they're not victims of anything. Me telling girls how to make money on TikTok, or not even how to make money, because no one makes money on TikTok, telling them how to get famous on TikTok, and them saying that I forced.
The fact that this is still an ongoing thing after that video, if you're not an Andrew Tate supporter because of what he said in the past, and I get it, he has said some wild stuff, but if you're solely and wholly sold on the fact that he is a human trafficker, and these are the victims saying that they're not victims, at what point? Because this is this is extremely crazy. It's actually insane the lengths that they're willing to go to cancel this man, to get him out of the picture, to stop his message, to stop his influence, right? Like, it's just, it's mind-boggling. It's honestly mind-boggling. It's honestly mind-boggling, yo.
Forced them for money, which doesn't exist. There's no money in the criminal file. There's no transactions. There's no financials, nothing. The girls themselves have given statements in my defense. They're being thrown away so they can continue with this case saying that I've brainwashed the women. So now we have, imagine in court, my brother and I and the two victims all on the same side saying nobody's done anything wrong. We're all friends. We were talking about TikTok accounts. And then you have the state with no witnesses on its own saying you're victims and you're bad and you're going to jail.
So it seems like what they're doing then is this is where the content from 10 years ago is coming into play, where they're saying, well, look, they're conflating this now. So even though these charges are from, and I read the indictment again, 2021, but look at what he said 10 years ago, which somehow confirms what we're saying. We don't have to listen to these women. On August 22nd, BRICS nations, that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, are expected to announce the launch of a new international supercurrency fully backed by gold or other commodities. This is part of their long-term plan to supplant the U.S. and the dollar as cornerstones of the global financial system. You can protect your IRA or 401k from fallout from this landmark announcement by diversifying with gold from Birch Gold. Historically, gold has been a safe haven in times of high uncertainty, which is right now. When currencies fail, gold is a safe haven. How much more time does dollar have? We don't know. Protect your savings with gold. Birch Gold has an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, plus thousands of happy customers. So text Candence to 989898 and get your free info kit on gold. If a central bank digital currency becomes a reality, it will be nice to have some gold to depend on. Again, text Candace to 989898. So I do want you to contextualize this video that has been circulating on the internet of you talking about the lover boy method. So we'll take a look at that right now.
Sure. You cannot get a girl to work for you having fun. So the recruitment process is the same as the PhD course. You message them on Instagram. The PhD course is my recruitment system. I don't mention webcam until after I've had sex with the girl. If you're on dates and you're trying to mention it and shit, it just doesn't work. It puts them off. I'd never do that. That's disgusting. I'm not a whore. It's just not gonna work. You continue as normal, no mention of webcam. You f the girl. After you f the girl, you do the PhD test. If she passes the PhD test and she wants to be with you, then you start mentioning things like, yeah, but you know, you're always busy. You're always at work. You can come work for me.
Okay, so first question, when was this video taken?
Yeah, so this video is...
All right, that's interesting. I've actually never seen that video. And I haven't seen the start of it. I want to say it's a tough one, but I'm not really sure the context of it. Yes, that was like contextualized, but I haven't seen the actual video itself. I don't even know if that's a course or something. So that one's actually kind of hard for me to talk about, defend, or condemn, honestly. So we'll just let him take that one.
It's from 10 years ago, and this is me explaining how having a webcam company, it's actually a larger video as a whole. I'm explaining how having a webcam company can affect your relationships and how it affects your dating life. It also explains the fact that one of the girls I was dating at the time was working on webcam at the time. And it's explaining my general, overall, explains my life and how things are affected owning a pornography company, because obviously a lot of women will be put off by that. It doesn't explain, it doesn't say, I have to be very careful how I answer this question because I'm currently under an investigation, right? So I'd be very careful how I answer it. People are trying to chop it up and say that it says I am using the lover boy method to somehow convince women to do things they didn't want to do. This is obviously not the case, and none of this is in the case file for a reason because it doesn't exist and none of these women are upset. But this is simply me explaining, it's actually a dating course I made a long time ago, and I'm a little bit embarrassed about it, to be honest with you, because it was 10 years ago and I was talking about women and dating and things in a way that I wouldn't talk about them anymore.
Right. So yeah, you look very young in the video.
I'm super young and I'm talking about, hey, when you sleep with this girl or you meet that girl or you meet this girl on Instagram and I have a webcam company. I don't tell them I have a webcam company. And I just think all that's kind of crass and it's below me.
Yeah.
And I don't really like talking about it. And it's amazing how things change as you mature and you get older. But once again, I was a much younger man. I think if you were to take any 24-year-old and look at the stuff he puts on the internet, some of it's going to be stupid. And I think if you look at anybody who made things 10 years ago, some of it's going to be stupid. It's absolutely not really not criminal in any regard. There's nothing criminal about it. It has no bearing or any interest in the current case. But yeah, I was talking about how I don't mention I have a webcam business. The basic premise of the video was me explaining that I don't mention I have a webcam business ever. And that I'm Mr. Rich and I have this nice car and I go on dates with girls. And sometimes when I say I have a webcam business, some of them want money and they want to work for me. That's the basic premise of it.
Right. I'm glad to hear that you're not proud of the video. And I think that that's one of those things where I say that people don't allow you to grow up from things that you've done or said in the past. And this is obviously when you were operating a webcam business, you're talking about.
And that's the whole thing about the human experience. We're supposed to grow, right? And we're supposed to make mistakes and we're supposed to learn from them and we're supposed to evolve as people. And I'm certainly not proud of the video. When I say I'm not sorry for what I've done, I don't mean it in a, I would do the same things again. I don't mean it that way. I mean that at the time I was a lot less knowledgeable and I was younger and I made some mistakes. And just like I'm sure Jay-Z would never sell crack again.
Right.
Exactly the same reason I would never make a stupid video saying something so stupid again. I also could have never predicted the fact that I was going to become one of the most famous people on the planet.
Right. I
didn't see that coming. And if I did, I would have been a lot more careful with what I said and how I said it. And I do think that it's part of every person's journey to make some mistakes and learn from them and grow from them. And I kind of find it interesting that if I was a reformed drug addict, there'd be no problem. If I was a reformed murderer, there'd be no problem. If I was a mafia boss and I'd sit here and I'd killed 3 people and we were doing an interview and I was like, yeah, I used to kill people. I've done my time. I'm out of jail now. I get less flack than if I made a video talking about dating when I used to have a business that did webcam than I currently get, you know? So all I can do is understand that I was a younger man. I did the best I could at the time. And I was trying my very best to survive in a very harsh world. And I understand now that a lot of the way I said things, I certainly shouldn't have said them that way, but none of it is criminal.
Right. And it, again, has no bearing on your case today, but I want
There's literally no bearing. And it's
that
conflation.
video is being circulated without, like, people think that video was shot last week.
Correct. And that's what's so good, because it's good to mention that, because people are trying to conflate them. Because in the current case against me, there's no case. Everybody understands there's no case. We're now in a situation where if the legal system's completely fair, then the case is over. So what they're trying to do is they're going to conflate with old videos of mine, and they're going to try and muddy the waters and gaslight. And I will say that I am unhappy those videos exist, and I will say I wish I never made them, but I won't say that I'm sorry, because at the time I did the best I knew how to do.
And I think that's important for the young kids that are following you, especially the young men, to know. Like I say, I always hope that I talk about the mistakes that I made, and I probably wouldn't even categorize them as mistakes. It's just things that I did. And if I could go back, of course, I wouldn't do it. Hindsight's 2020. Yeah. But it's important for them to hear that. You know, I'm not proud of that, obviously. I'm not proud of it.
And that's why I never push them to the world, and that's why I never, propagate them in any way. Unfortunately, there's a weaponized attack against me where they still exist. And that's why I do so good to talk against them. I think that if you want to tell kids not to do drugs, you usually have a reformed drug addict to stand up and say, don't do drugs. I was a drug addict. It was a mistake. And I think that gives you a degree of credibility. So for me to sit here and say, be a lot more careful, one, with the way you say things on the internet, especially. Two, be a lot more careful with your interactions with women as a whole, especially in light of the Me Too movement and all these other things. Be very respectful. This is a small clip. If you watch the video in its entirety, I actually talk about extensively about how you don't want to make a woman feel pressured. You don't want to pick up a rape charge for no reason. If she feels upset or sad, make sure you get her a taxi home. I talk about all these things in the same video. So this is still the worst part of a very long form video taken out of context. However, I do think there's a lot of lessons to be learned from it. And yeah, if I have to be slightly embarrassed and a little bit taken aback by them so I can teach people the lessons, and I'm going to teach people the lessons. And the basic premise is I was explaining how I have a webcam company and how it affects my romantic life. And that was how it was all encompassing and went together. And I think when I made the video, I got like 28 views.
Yeah, and now it's being circulated.
And I'm being told I'm the worst person in the world by people who pretended they've never done anything wrong for the last 10 years. And also there has to be a degree of time. I like to think there's a statute of limitations. Like, how long are you going to hold?
They will for the rest of your career.
I'm sure they will. And it's fine. And that's fine. But I mean, it's just like, okay, 10 years ago, a decade.
Yeah, they're going to keep making you answer for it in every capacity. I've seen that. God forbid you misspeak, you miss a word while you're saying something, they will circulate it over and over again. That's just the world of social media.
For me, what I feel is I don't feel guilty about them, but I do feel embarrassed, because I don't feel like the way I spoke about women or the way I spoke about romantic relationships is my current view on romantic relationships. I think I've certainly matured. I was a young, brash, arrogant guy. This is what happens when you have a young kickboxer who's beating everyone up, who's making a bunch of money from the streets. I was a young, brash, arrogant guy, and I spoke in a way I perhaps shouldn't have spoke. And I'm sure if Jay-Z makes a song today, he won't speak about women and crack and drugs the way he used to speak about women and crack and drugs. It's just the reality of life. And you have to grow, and you have to take the embarrassment which comes from growing. So I will certainly sit here and make sure, I think the whole world understands that that's not my message. That's not what I'm teaching young boys today. The young boys who are following me today have no interest in these videos and don't watch these videos unless they're pushed by haters. And I think that overall, I'm a net positive for the world. I think that men being so disenfranchised is, I want to say something quickly about the British school system. The English school system has attacked me, and now they're trying to put me, they've spent billions of dollars trying to remove me from schools because young boys were running around saying, what color is your Bugatti, and repeating my sayings. I don't think I can really truly be held responsible for the fact that young boys repeat a saying, especially one that's not particularly aggressive. I think that shows that the young boys are looking for a hero and someone to look up to, and I feel like I'm filling a gap. And that's why I understand it's so important I say very good things and teach very good things. And I don't think I would have learned so much good if I hadn't been involved to a degree with the dark and the bad. I don't think there is light without dark. A lot of my lessons and a lot of the messages I give to the world come from the fact that I grew up in one of the worst areas of the Western world, surrounded by drug dealers, surrounded by real pimps doing real bad things, surrounded by broken homes. I learned all these lessons, and if I had never had those experiences and never grew up in that scenario, how could I be a person who's now teaching young men, disenfranchised young men, the realities of the world? How could I? We talked earlier about having a sheltered life. A sheltered life doesn't allow you to be the kind of man who can teach. So yeah, I spoke in a way I shouldn't have spoke. Yeah, I regret the video completely. Have I ever hurt anybody? No. Has any of the girls who are being mentioned in that video come forward with anything other than defense of me? No. Nobody was actually hurt. It was just very brash, very arrogant, very bad delivery, which I regret.
I'm going to tell you something right now. If love with you as a human being, if I had to watch clips of me 10, 11 years ago, I would be red. Even the black girl go red. I couldn't even look. I wouldn't even want my husband to see it. So I feel your embarrassment.
Well, and
that's why a part of me when they were regurgitating these clips, I was like, this is so unfair. It's so unfair to say I'm upset. And by and large, the stuff that you're saying to young men, even if there are certain things I don't agree with, although I found it interesting that you said that peacocking is natural with men, because I think you're right. Now that you say it, I'm just a woman and I don't understand it. Yeah. But by and large, the stuff that you're saying today is not that. And so I think it's really, you got to be really careful if you're convicting somebody on who they were a decade ago.
Yeah, it's a grimy tactic, honestly. You can't go 10 years back and expect people to be able to defend actions, words, or things they did or said for 10 years ago. No. Every person in the world is getting hit with something if you have to go back 10 years to find out anything that they did. It's really not a fair game, to be honest. We went a little past our time, so we're going to stop it right here, guys. This is a good place to stop. Stay tuned for part 3, because this was part 2. We're going to break this out into 3 hours. So yeah, stay tuned for part 3. Y'all take it easy. We out.